Hi, Kaveh here, violinist and music educator. Back today with the first of many videos in the series called Essential Elements Book 1. This series needs to start off with a few videos that help you get set up for success starting as a beginner on the violin. And one thing you might not know is that you're going to need a few items before you can be successful at your chosen instrument. Today I'm specifically going to talk about students choosing the violin, but if you have any questions about viola, cello, or bass, make sure you type them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer any questions that pop up. You've decided on violin and you're stuck at home and might not have one, so what I recommend doing is searching online for an instrument. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind when you search online for an instrument is that instruments that you purchase through various sites are going to have various degrees of quality. And I hear a lot of students, and I've seen a lot of students of mine asking, can I buy a violin on eBay? Can I buy a violin on Amazon? And the answer is yes, of course you can, but oftentimes what you get when you buy a violin on eBay is not going to be the same as the advertised picture, or if you buy something on Amazon, it's going to be really low quality. Good enough to start, yes, but if you get a low quality violin, oftentimes your child or you are going to have more trouble getting a decent sound out of it and also feeling comfortable playing it. So what I recommend is if you're going to buy a violin on Amazon, make sure you communicate with your lesson teacher that you're doing that, and your lesson teacher can direct you to an instrument that's right for you. A couple other things that you want to think about when you purchase an instrument are how tall are you? If you're shorter, you're going to need a smaller violin. If you're taller, you can upgrade to a larger violin, and the largest violin that you can purchase is called a full size, also called 4/4, a 4 out of 4, 4/4 size violin. This is a 4/4 size violin, and what makes it fall into that category is that this string length is about 14 inches, and that makes it really comfortable for me to play. And what you're looking for when you hold the instrument is pretty much a 90 degree, close to 90 degree angle when you're holding your instrument. So if you're in second grade, for example, I'm 6'1", you're going to have a really tough time with this instrument, and it's going to look like this while you're holding it if you're in second grade. And what I generally recommend is that if you're starting in second grade, which is how I start, the youngest I start students, there are other people that start them younger. I usually recommend a quarter size violin. It's called 1/4 size violin. And as your student gets taller and they advance in grade at their school, usually I'm recommending a half size violin at the end of third grade, maybe into fourth grade. Fourth, fifth, sixth grade, you could play that violin for about 3 years, half size violin. And maybe sixth grade, seventh grade, you could upgrade to a 3/4 size violin, and probably by 8th grade you're going to be tall enough to play a full size violin. Besides the size, which is very important, and if you're one of my students, please email me or type a comment into your Google Classroom about what size you need. Besides the size, you're going to need a few accessories. Sometimes when you go on certain websites, they're going to list the violin price, and the price is, let's say it's $175. Some of those websites will sell you the violin alone without other accessories that you're going to need. So what accessories do you need? Well, you're going to need a case to protect the violin and carry it around. You're also going to need something called a shoulder rest. A shoulder rest is relatively modern invention that helps hold up the violin and makes it easier for a beginner to start. It's good for your posture. It's good for preventing injuries. You're also going to need rosin. This is called rosin. If I open it up, it's tree sap, which you rub on the horsehair every day before you play, which makes the horsehair a little bit sticky so that it makes sound on your instrument. If I don't have rosin, then you're not going to hear anything while you're bowing the string. You're going to hear a sound. It's not going to make a note. A couple other things you're going to need. You might need a chinrest key. This is a chinrest key. I don't know if you could see it. There's a tip here that you can use to tighten the chinrest. Now, most violins, when you buy them, will come with a chinrest pre-installed, but sometimes they come loose, and if you're quarantined at home, then you might need to get your parents' help to tighten it. Another thing you're going to need, besides the bow, which usually comes with the violin, the bow. I've rarely seen a violin come without a bow, but you're going to want to check that when you're buying an instrument online for specific wording that it comes with a bow, a case, rosin, a shoulder rest. Is for this series, you're going to need a book. And since this is my beginner series, I'm using Essential Elements for String, Violin Book 1. Now, if you're playing violin, you need to make sure it says violin right here at the top. If you're a viola player, it's going to say Viola Book 1, Cello Book 1, Bass, it's going to say Bass Book 1. You want to make sure that it looks like this. This one has a lot of stickers on it. It's been heavily used, but it's going to be orange and brown and beige, and it's going to have a picture of a violin on it, and it's going to say Essential Elements for Strings. There are older versions of this book that are red and blue, and they're from years and years ago, and they're not going to work exactly when I say turn to page 10. The page numbers are going to be a little bit different, so you want to make sure it's Essential Elements for Strings, Book 1. You can also buy the older version of this book, which is called Essential Elements 2000 for Strings. Essential Elements 2000 for Strings. Some of these books come with a DVD inside and a CD, and they're going to, I think, run around $14. If they don't have the CD or DVD, it's going to be cheaper, about $7 or $8. Do you need the CD and DVD system? Well, if you don't have a CD player and you don't have a DVD player anymore, as my Apple computer does not have a CD drive anymore, and I don't think I have a CD player in this house, you don't need one. But if you still have a CD player, this orange one will pop into your CD player, and your child or you can play along with some tracks that don't include the violin part. And if your violin is in tune, it's going to sound good. And the same tracks are included in the DVD, where you can look at a screen, and it's mainly the sound that's going to be playing. There's also some short videos on it about instrument care. But this lesson series, I'm going to be playing the piano a little bit. I'm going to be playing along with you. So you don't necessarily need the DVD version of this book. So make sure you purchase the book. There's going to be a link down below. If it's out of stock, because I've seen this book is out of stock on Amazon specifically, you got to really look for it. You could do a Google search, or you could look on other music websites like Sam Ash, Guitar Center, and stuff like that. So let's go back to purchasing or renting your violin. So a lot of people think that renting a violin is going to be cheaper, and yes, it is month to month, but you need to keep in mind when you contact a local violin shop to do rentals, and in a couple minutes I'm going to give you a few options, that the violin shop that's renting you the instrument is going to sometimes require a deposit. Let's say it's $100, and then usually they're going to charge you between $20 or $40 a month. And if you multiply $20 times 10, that's $200 plus your $100 deposit, which obviously you're going to get back when you return the instrument. You've already spent $200 And if your rental is more, you spent more than that. So what I'm about to do is recommend a couple of $200 options that you can find online, and also give you some local area violin shops in the Philadelphia area. I'm a Philadelphia public school teacher, and this is primarily designed for my students there, but obviously open to everyone else. So a couple local shops. So should you buy or rent? Some people think renting is good. The advantage of renting is if something is wrong with the instrument, you can give it back to the violin shop and they'll give you a completely different one, and that might work better for you. Keep in mind, a lot of times the rental instrument might previously had been used and might be a little bit beat up, but probably not. Most rental programs that I've dealt with as a teacher are pretty good. So, what price point and where should you shop for these things? A couple places that I recommend. If you're going to buy on Amazon, you're really buying at your own risk. One negative aspect of buying on Amazon is that you're not going to get support to repair the instrument if something's wrong with it. You also don't know if that violin is coming from a violin shop that sets up the violin well. Setup is small little adjustments, because there's some small adjustments that you can make to make a violin easier to play, like the bridge height. A violin shop will make the bridge height the right amount so the action on the string is good. They'll make sure that the grooves are smooth at a violin shop. They'll make sure the pegs turn easily at a real violin shop. They'll make sure that you have a good tailpiece and that the tailpiece cord is on correctly, and also put good strings on it. When you buy a violin through a place, let's say Guitar Center or Sam Ash or other music stores that you've heard of, because maybe your parents played drums in high school or something like that, they're not setting up the instrument carefully. They're putting cheap strings on the instrument. It's going to sound scratchier. It's going to be a more unpleasant experience because they're not violinists at the shop. There's a lot of guitar players and drummers and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you buy through a violin shop. So the online retailers that I recommend are pretty much two. And the top choice, and it's a company that I've ordered from since I was a kid, and that was a long time ago, is sharmusic.com, S-H-A-R music, all one word, .com. And a new company that I've been working with lately, which I've really been impressed with because their prices are very good, is Fiddlershop.com. And the violins specifically that I recommend are around the $200 range. If you're buying a violin for less than $200 as a beginner, you're going to get a cheaper instrument, and they fall apart easier, they're harder to play, they're harder to maintain over time. Another advantage of, like I said before, buying through Shar Music, buying through Fiddlershop. I've bought violins for school programs, by the way, through Shar Music, and I have a violin from Fiddlershop right over there. And I can confirm that they set up the instrument well. The curvature of the fingerboard is good. The string height is good. The bridge needs to be carved down because they come in large blanks and thinned out by hand. This is not something a machine can do. And certain other features like the pegs are set up properly and make it easy and enjoyable for a beginner. So Shar Music, what specific brand do I recommend on sharmusic.com? By the way, if you click on a link below, I'm not getting paid for this, for any purchases you make through these links. This is not a sponsored video by any means. I recommend the Hoffman brand. I think it's Hoffmann, or maybe I added too many F's or N's. Hoffman. So there's a Hoffman Prelude, there's a Hoffman Etude, and I wouldn't go to the bottom cheapest level. I would go a step up, and I would suggest spending about $200 for the complete package violin bow case. I think that Hoffman brand does not include a shoulder rest. and I'll talk to you a bit about shoulder rests and other things that you're going to need. The other company that I'm recommending is Fiddlershop.com, and I'm going to have a link below about the specific violin that I recommend. It's called the Rockstar by Tower Strings, and I did a review on this channel, which you can find below, about this violin, and I was very impressed with the setup, the sound, and the price. $250. That Rockstar violin came with not only the case, which had backpack straps, the bow, the violin with a chin rest, which is normal to have a chin rest, but it came with a shoulder rest, it came with rosin, it came with a metronome, it came with a practice mute, and a polishing cloth, I think even polish, I'm not quite sure about that, but a lot of other accessories that you're going to need. So your one-stop shop for all the accessories, minus the book, don't forget you have to buy the book for this lesson series, is Fiddlershop.com. That Rockstar Tower violin, highly recommend it. Now, don't forget to buy the right size for you. Quarter size, half size violin, 3/4 size violin. If you're in high school, you should be playing a 4/4 full size violin, or you're an adult student, that's the size for you. But if you're short for your age range, you might want to step down. Let's say you're in 6th grade and you're a little bit shorter compared to other kids in your class. Maybe a 3/4 is right for you. If you're in 7th grade and you're shooting up in your height, go with a full size. Make sure you call Fiddlershop.com. They have a phone number on their website, sharmusic.com. They're open, both these companies. Call and tell them your child's height or your height and ask what size do I need, and they should be able to help you better. Oftentimes I do it by sight. I'm not measuring kids. I just say, that looks too big. You need a smaller violin or whatnot. Now, if you're going to buy separate items, let's say you already picked out your violin with a case. Don't forget about the case. And I think the Prelude, Hoffman Prelude, is about $179 with the case and the bow. You're still going to need a shoulder rest. You're still going to need rosin. You probably need a tuner, an independent tuner, unless you're going to get a tuning app on your phone or use YouTube to tune. And you're going to need a metronome, a separate metronome, which you can also use your phone to get a tuning app, or you can type into YouTube metronome 60 beats per minute, for example, and get a metronome that way. But definitely need a shoulder rest. Now, a lot of my students use a sponge, a kitchen sponge, dry of course, right here underneath the chin rest side, and wrap it with a rubber band. But I don't really recommend that, because once you put the sponge on, it's going to squish and you're going to start drooping. And you need to be able to hold up the violin parallel to the ground. The strings should be parallel to the ground. So the top brand that I recommend is the KUN Shoulder Rest. You can find it pretty much all over the internet, still in stock. You can find it at Shar, you can find it at Fiddlershop. Or the Everest. This is an Everest, and both these shoulder rests I reviewed previously on this channel. You can find them down below. The Everest is great, probably the best for a beginner in my opinion, because the feet will not slip off your violin. But the KUN is pretty much the standard recommendation. Now, really important, don't forget, you need to buy the right size shoulder rest for your instrument size. So if you're buying a half-size violin, you need a half-size shoulder rest. So you're all squared away. Perhaps you got your chin rest key too. It's going to add some costs. One other thing you're going to need, a music stand. And I could show you my music stand right here, but let me see if I can do it. Yeah, there it is. Music stand right here. This is a full-on professional music stand. They're not very much. You know, they could start anywhere from 30 to 100 bucks. You could also get a wire. It's called a wire, metal wire music stand. Usually about 20 bucks, sometimes less. But you need some way of putting your music diagonally at eye level while you're playing so that you develop good posture while you're playing. You don't want to be tilted down. You don't want to be tilted up. You could, if you have a table like this, open up your book on the in a computer, tilt your book this way somehow if you don't want to just yet buy a music stand. I've heard about kids putting the book on the windowsill while they practice and opening it up so they have good posture. Remember, you want the book at eye level somehow. You could put a pillow on your bed and sit down and sit near the bed so that the book is at eye level. But you need some way of putting the book at eye level at an angle just like this so that it doesn't fall. That's the reason why it's on an angle. So you can practice with good posture. You don't want to be tilted down. You don't want to put it on a table where you're pointed down because you're going to break your neck. So let me talk about one last thing about items that you might need. You might need a little bit better quality violin and a little bit more high-end violin. And for that, above the $200 range, in my opinion, you're going to want to go to a local violin shop. Not only to get sized in person, remember to call because a lot of violin shops only take appointments, especially now during this crazy time. You're going to want to go in person also to see if it's the right feel for you to get sized, and the salesperson at the violin shop can help. But you're going to want to buy in person at a local shop so that eventually, if you spent a lot of money, let's say $250, $300, $400, and I wouldn't go above $400 or $500 for a beginning violin, but the benefit of that is that if you bought a violin through a violin shop that caters to students, they will take that violin back and give you credit towards a better violin later. Or if you got taller and you were playing on a half-size violin and all of a sudden you're playing on a you need a three-quarter size violin, you can basically trade it in for a violin of the same value. That's really the main advantage of purchasing a violin through a local violin shop. And in my opinion, it's always best to go to a local violin shop. And in the Philadelphia area, I'm going to name some names right now. Remember, I'm not sponsored by any of these shops, and they don't give me free stuff. The company that I've worked with the most is called KOT, Cott Violins, and that's in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Cott Violins, excellent. I purchased one myself. I played that violin that I got, I think it was less than $500, and I played it on gigs, and nobody could hear the difference. I loved it. It was bright red and great second violin, an additional violin. Remember, I have many violins. But I definitely recommend Cott Violins. There'll be the website down below. And you need to call these places to get an appointment before you go. Another place is Mount Airy Violins, which is relatively new in the area, but I found they had a pretty good selection. Also have a lot of higher end violins. But the service is great. They're very friendly inside, and they have a lot of great stuff. And I played on a $400 student violin there that was super loud and super powerful, and I was really impressed with the sound. Something that I would play for a wedding gig of mine. A third place you could try is Harold Golden Violins, and you need to do a Google search to find that number. So pretty much wrapped up some items that you're going to need for this lesson series. Don't forget, this lesson series is open to all students. So if you have your violin but you don't have a book, you can continue with this lesson series. It's pretty much open to any age. So you're in 2nd grade, 4th grade, 18th grade, you're going to love it. Don't forget, these lessons will be popping up as I make them. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You're going to want to hit the notification bell to know when a new lesson pops up, because they're going to be popping up. Again, my name's Kaveh. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. And if you have nothing else to do right now, click down below. I got some original music that I wrote, some gear reviews, violin gear reviews, and some other stuff I have going on. And don't forget to stay in touch. Type comment down below, ask a question, and I'll be happy to answer it for you. And if you're a school district of Philadelphia student and you're still having trouble, don't forget to type a comment or a question into your Google Classroom. Peace.